Hello, everybody. It's nice to have you all join us today. We're very lucky. We've got a great guest today, and we will also have some updates as usual from our sales and our marketing team. Before I turn it over to our guest speaker, I do want to call out, in case you missed it, there was some really good news on Monday about the project regarding the America Center expansion, and that is that the St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation, which is the owner of the convention center and had to give the go-ahead to issue the bonds for the city, did just that. And the financing team is meeting on Monday, late Monday, to review what their plan is for the timing of that. So by this time next week, we'll have a solid plan on the issuance of those bonds. So really good news. You know, it's been a very challenging year for all of us. Everybody on this call knows how challenging it's been, but it's nice to know that we can look forward to when the industry is back at a normal level, we will have a building that will be in a position to be able to compete, instead of a 1977 building with a lot of Band-Aids on it. So that's a really exciting project to be able to get started. Speaking of exciting projects, we're going to have a live tour today of the City Foundry project, which has been just a phenomenal development that's been occurring in the Midtown area. Steve Smith is going to give you that tour, but before I turn it over to him, I just want to make sure that you all know how much Steve Smith does for this community and how involved he is in the hospitality industry. Because probably there are a few folks on this call here who don't really know who you are, Steve, but they do know of the projects that you've been doing. So the Lawrence Group, which is a St. Louis-based company, developer company, which has design studios, has been involved in the development of a lot of different projects in the hospitality space in our community. And specifically, they've really worked on taking older, unused buildings or vacant buildings, underutilized or vacant buildings, and transforming them, activating that space into something that is unique, not only for the hospitality industry overall, but unique for St. Louis. And so some of those examples include 2 hotels, both in the Midtown area. One is the Hotel Ignacio, and the other is the On God Arts Hotel. Both of those have great restaurants and food and beverage options in there. So not only is he a hotel developer, he's a restaurant developer. And then he's also been engaged in other projects in the hospitality space, like visitor attractions. So the Moto Museum, which is on that same block that the Hotel Ignacio was his concept, and it has its own retail space. And I understand that he's kind of a motorcycle guy himself. So and many other things. Really, though, that's really just, that really is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of all of the projects that the Lawrence Group is a part of in this community. The biggest, by far, I think, at least in terms of our perception of it from a hospitality space, is the development of the City Foundry project, which I don't think anybody looking at that old building 10 years ago would have seen what Steve Smith saw in terms of its possibilities. And it probably would be sitting vacant in an unused state right now were it not for him. So I would like to have you welcome Steve Smith and turn this over so that he can give us a good preview of what things are happening right now at City Foundry and what's planned for the near future. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Well, Kitty, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you, Explore St. Louis, for everything you do for St. Louis and for this region. And welcome to City Foundry. I'm sure many of the people on here have driven by the project over the last number of years and seen it from the outside and from the edges. And so today what we want to do is give you a little bit of a sneak peek inside City Foundry, both the development right here, and then we're going to go in our food hall in a minute. So I will tell you, I'm a little bit biased, but I think this is one of the most unique things in St. Louis, but I think this is going to be something that's going to be unique in this country. Taking a 100-year-old foundry building and converting it into all the things that we're going to put into it, which I'll explain in a minute, is unlike anything I've seen anywhere in the United States. So I'm hoping, and I'm quite frankly expecting, that we're going to have a lot of buzz that's going to circulate around the travel industry when we open up, whenever that is, about City Foundry, because it's going to be really interesting. It's got a lot of entertainment, food, a lot of it's local, a lot of it's St. Louis, and so something I think that'll really be part of the great St. Louis story that we're working on right now. So with that, I'll give you a little tour here. So we're on Foundry Way. So this is our private street in the heart of City Foundry. And what's neat about it is we own the street. We designed it to be able to do events. So we can do food events, art events, dancing in the streets, farmers markets. We can do outdoor movies. We can do concerts, and we can just do them whenever we want because we own it. And so as we think about special events, there will be ones that we program, but we would also invite people, you know, if we have special events coming to St. Louis, we could set something up. We could have a reception in this whole area right here and then move into our restaurants and our food operations around it. So that's unlike really anything we can do anywhere in the region, quite frankly. And since it's private, it's really easy to accommodate that. We also around here have free parking. We have about 1,000 free parking spaces on site. So if we're doing something at the convention center or at the hotels around the region, and then there's an event here, we can accommodate everybody very easily by bus, by car, by Uber, or rideshare, whatever it might be, Metrolink, all come here to City Foundry easily. So that's sort of the kind of core here in terms of Foundry Way and the building. So what we did in terms of specific design is we took the original Foundry, Century Electric Foundry, built in 1922, and everyone else said tear it down. Well, we kept it and preserved it. We're going to go in there in just a minute. And then we built new buildings around it to kind of create this larger community. And what we're going to have here is we already have offices moved in. So we have daytime traffic. There are people here during the day. But then we're going to have restaurants, including a beer garden, rooftop beer garden. We have restaurants. We have a food hall, which we're going to come to. We have a movie theater, Alamo Drafthouse Theaters, which is both movie runs, but also could be for presentations and things. We have a company called Punchbowl Social, which is social games, food, and drink. We have an event space, courtesy of Butler's Pantry, called 18 Rails that's moving in. We actually have a food innovation center being done by Deli Star that was announced 2 weeks ago, which I think will be very, very unique. And then we'll have shops, so there'll be places to buy things. And we're really focusing right now on local vendors. So people come to St. Louis, they're gonna have an opportunity to see what St. Louis makes from our maker community and what St. Louis cooks from our chef community here in St. Louis. So that's kind of the idea. If we look around a little bit, we got a camera here. This is the center of the development. We call it our centerpiece right here, the trommel, a 30-ton sculptural element that we found in a junkyard in St. Louis, Foundry Way. Here's our central court over here. We have ground floor retail. We kind of walk around this way, and you see we actually have an elevated section. So if there was an event in the street, we could actually have people watching from above. Down at the end down here, we have our movie theater, Alamo Drafthouse Theater, on the upper floor, more retail below. And we have some restaurants going in over here on the lower section in this area. And then if we go all the way around here, if we look up a little bit, this is our rooftop beer garden, so Fassler Hall. So it's St. Louis, for a German beer town, we don't have that many sort of big beer gardens. So we'll have one here with a big capacity. And again, we can do private events up there. And that's a tenant of ours called Fassler Hall. We'll go up there in a minute. And then in the centerpiece, we think the kind of heart of City Foundry is our food hall. And they're literally painting the sign today. That sign went up, I think, earlier this morning. So it's that recent. And so that'll enter into the food hall. So why don't we go on inside? But you can follow me? So I'm standing right at the entrance to our 30,000 square foot, 20 chef food hall. And so the concept here is to have 20 different vendors, each St. Louis with unique food ideas. And so the only place you can get this kind of food would be here. So we have no chains, we have no national chefs, these are all local. So think of it as the taste of St. Louis permanently. That's what we're really creating here. As we look around, you can kind of see the different stalls for each of the different chefs. And so a big group coming to St. Louis, or a big group doing something, could come here, a couple hundred people, and go to the individual food stalls, and then all the seating is communal. And so again, we can accommodate hundreds of people in this food hall, actually hope to regularly, to really share the culinary talent that we're kind of creating here in St. Louis. So if we walk around a little bit, we built this inside the original foundry space. So to the degree we can get the camera around, we basically left the old foundry equipment in place. So we have the original, there's a monorail system here, there's old sand hoppers and old the major ductwork. Obviously, you've got the ceilings are almost 40 foot tall on the edges here. And so what we did is, to create a unique experience, is to take what was here as a foundry built 100 years ago and put inside of that these different food operations. So are we able to walk around a little bit here? Mm-hmm. So actually, let's go this way. So this is an operator called Good Day. So they're going to be doing they're doing wraps?
Crepes.
Oh, crepes. Okay, I'm sorry. And over here, we're going to have our food hall bar. So we will have our own bar. And then over here, we're expecting a pizza operator. Somebody who's going to do St. Louis-based pizza. We'll have, Buenos Aires Cafe doing South American Argentinian food. We have a City Taco Shack, which is Asian fusion. We have, what else do we have?
Popsicles.
We have Poptimism, both straight and liquored popsicles. We have Hello Pokey, doing pokey. So those are the sort of food concepts we're going to have in here. And these are, again, St. Louis chefs. So I think what'll be great, and what we hope that will develop here, is the idea of being able to come to St. Louis, come into a very, very unique experience, and then also be able to have the taste of St. Louis. So around us, let's talk about that. At the end of the food hall, on the far end down here, we're going to have Punch Bowl Social, and that is a company out of Denver, Colorado. They do social games, food and drink. So they have like bowling alley and shuffleboard and basically social games. They do a lot of events. Part of their core business is to do events. And so for, again, for visitors or corporations, the idea is you build community by playing together. And then of course they have food and drink as well. Down over here, if we look this way, that is where 18 Rails is going to be, right through those doors. We're actually going to build some big doors there. And so that'll actually have a capacity probably in the neighborhood of 500. And that's Butler's Pantry at the end of the day. And so they'll be able to do custom events, galas, receptions, wedding receptions, certainly anything in the tourism or visitor groups that want to come here that want to have a catered dinner or catered event that's smaller than maybe what might happen at the convention center. So that would be right here, and that's called 18 Rails. We have a tenant going in on the far end of the food hall. This is an interesting one. That's called Game Station, and it is going to be an esports auditorium. How about that? Nothing like it in St. Louis right now. It's designed for basically league and team play as opposed to individual, but esport is a rapidly growing sport in the country, and we will have an auditorium here in St. Louis where esports can do league or team or event type of esport play. And that'll be here at City Foundry as well. And so those are some of the highlights that we're going to have here at City Foundry. What else can I share?
Hey, Steve,
Thanks
can
so
you
much,
hear me?
Steve.
Yeah, we want to be careful not going off our, we go farther, but we might lose you because we have limited Wi-Fi connection here. Otherwise, I'd take you farther around.
So talk to us, Steve, about the phases of coming online and the timing associated with those phases.
Sure, excellent question. So obviously COVID has disrupted everything for all of us. And I'm in the hotel business too, and the restaurant business. So I feel it very, very specifically and succinctly. So we have already moved several of our office tenants in. So people that right now are coming to work here at City Foundry. So we are effectively open in that regard. But our public spaces, the things I just outlined, are going to happen sequentially, really realistically next year. The food hall, we've not given a date to, but we're hoping to open the food hall sometime in the first quarter next year. We're hoping to be able to do that if the world accommodates us. You know, the concept of the food hall is to bring people together, to bring community together. we break bread together. And so the idea of not having people able to come in crowds and be close to one another is the opposite of what the food hall is about. So we are going to wait to open the food hall until we can bring people to be able to come close together again. And so we're hoping that is early next year. In terms of some of our other retail tenants, such as Punchbowl Social, the beer garden, which is the rooftop beer garden past our hall, Alamo Drafthouse Theater, each one of those is going to have a distinct opening. And so we're working with each of those individual tenants about when they'll open. And I'm going to say generally that will be from the, let's call it March of next year into mid-year next year is when those will open. And each one of those, we're going to do an individual opening so we can kind of celebrate and have a grand opening for each of those individual tenants. I do want to mention for everyone is we're already in design for phase 2. And so there's been a lot of interest in City Foundry, and we're going to be driving so much traffic here. We're very confident in this being a place that people are going to want to come to, both from the community, but also definitely visitors to St. Louis. We sit halfway between downtown and Forest Park, for instance. That we're already in the design work for phase 2. We haven't released any details on that yet, other than it'll be significant and substantial. And we hope to be able to announce it sometime in the 4th quarter of this year, what we're planning for that. So I want you to know that we have momentum and we're continuing to invest in what's happening in this exciting area of Midtown St. Louis.
It's great. It's very exciting. We have a question in the chat function, Steve, and the question is Fresh Thyme still coming to City Foundry?
Absolutely, positively. We actually got their full construction drawings literally on Monday from them because they're responsible for that part of the work. And so we're hoping to actually start the construction bids for the Fresh Thyme probably in 2 or 3 weeks. And a month later, we should be able to start construction. So they will absolutely open up sometime early next year because it'll take us 4 months or so to build it. And then they have the equipment and that. So Fresh Thyme's definitely coming on board. I should mention, that's a segue to the Brickline Trail. I'm sure a lot of people on this podcast here are familiar with the High Line in New York. Well, St. Louis is going to have its version, which will be called the Brickline. And that's part of the Great Rivers Greenway trail system. And the plan is for the Brickline will go from the Gateway Arch in downtown St. Louis all the way to Forest Park. And it'll go right through the middle of City Foundry on an elevated rail line that we have here. So if for those who've been on the New York High Line, if we have a fraction of the traffic that goes on the High Line in New York, we will be enormously popular here at City Foundry with the Brickline. That right now is in design, and with any luck, we'll be hopefully under construction with that sometime next year as well.
That's great. Another question from the audience, Steve. We have more than 100 people, or about 100 people online right now, and I'm sure they're as thrilled as we are to see this. And this question has to do with esports. Can you talk more about the esports component, the amount of space, when it's going to be open, who's going to be operating it, et cetera?
Yeah, so that is a tenant. It is a local entrepreneur. Austin Smith is the proprietor of that. It's designed with 8 groups of 6 seats. And so you can have 6-on-6 competitions. It could be soccer, basketball, football, whatever kind of e-sport or other games that you play. And so the league play is intended to be 6-on-6 or 4-on-4. And the design is to allow that sort of group and social setting, just like you have in real sports, call it recreational leagues, that will happen in the space. The total capacity of stations in there, let's see, it's about 60. So 60 stations at any given point in time, of which 48 are reserved for these esport leagues. But when the leagues aren't there, we can do private events. I'm sure they'll do private events and things like that. It'll also have a bar in it as well. Part of the concept is to allow esports to play, but it's very much thought of as a social environment where you have people who are competing. It's think of it as bowling leagues or volleyball leagues or softball leagues, and this is esport leagues, and that's what it's going to be.
Terrific. Steve, could you talk about some of your other partners, including Gerard Craft and your catering partner as well, for both the food court and use of City Foundry as an event space in the future?
So Gerard Kraft came on board after COVID started, quite frankly, and he has been, as you know, enormously helpful for us, and both in terms of consulting, in terms of some of the decisions we're making about designing an effective food hall, but also he's made introductions to some of St. Louis's top culinary talent. I do want to mention that we have really sought out diversity in food concepts, diversity in proprietors. You know, part of the concept of the food hall is not only to have the taste of St. Louis, if you will, but to have it from St. Louis chefs, and that needs to be diverse chefs, and also some who are starting a business for the first time. So part of the concept of the food hall is co-working for chefs to allow some younger chefs to learn from people like Gerard Kraft. And so all of those are part of the aspirations, what we're doing here. And Gerard and his niche hospitality group have been absolutely outstanding in assisting us on that. In terms of events, I mentioned earlier Butler's Pantry. Their event space is called 18 Rails. And so they'll be able to, and you can call Ricky Nix now and start planning for events next year sometime. Clearly, like everyone who does events, we're waiting to know when we can actually gather again for that. But we are confident that'll happen sometime next year. But we also, as I mentioned earlier, have the opportunity to do events on our Foundry Way, public events there. We actually have several other event spaces in the building that City Foundry itself will make the space available, and we'll cater with either Butler's Pantry or our own catering business. So we have a lot of ways to accommodate all different types of gatherings of events. And I would mention that both Great Rivers Greenway has a community room in their space for about 100 people. And then Alamo Drafthouse Theater is 10 theaters, basically, of which they also would make available on a special event basis. So we can do a full range of interesting kind of events and concepts, from St. Louis International Film Festival could be here. We have a rooftop beer garden where we could have social events. We have Butler's Pantry. We have the main street. So let your creativity run wild in different ways to kind of create unique and exciting gatherings for people here at City Foundry.
That's great. Back to esports. I don't know if you answered this, but I've been busy reading questions that are coming in fast and furiously. On the esports side, what kind of capacity are you going to have in that facility for spectators?
Great question, and it is designed for spectators. So again, I'm the landlord, I'm not the tenant. So Austin Smith is the tenant, and we can connect you with him, and I know he'll be very, very eager. He's my nephew, by the way. He'll be very, very eager to answer questions and start building business relationships. But Lawrence Group did design the esports auditorium. And so again, it's designed with these 8 bays, each with 6 seats. But along with that is viewing space, both lounge with sofas, as well as fixed with bar rails and things like that. And so we imagine being able to do competitions here where you'll have a lot of spectators. We he imagines partnering perhaps with high schools or other organizations that want to create their own leagues. They'll bring their teams down here. The teams will bring their families and friends down here to spectate. So it is designed to have a total experience, not just for the gamers, but also for spectators as well. Capacity-wise, I know that from a legal standpoint, I think we're thinking it's around 180. That would be pretty packed in there. But we can have a substantial crowd in that auditorium.
Hey, Steve, it's Kitty. You know, I think the location here is so wonderful for St. Louis, for the development of St. Louis. It's really it's a bridge to St. Louis University, to the development in Cortex, right next to IKEA. And Midas Hospitality is building that hotel immediately on your north side, all in an area that was really a little bit of no man's land when you would leave downtown to go to the hospital complex or Forest Park. You mentioned a phase 2. I know you don't want to really give anything away on this call particularly, but I'm wondering is there anything you can share about the vision of that area and that connectivity that maybe we don't know?
Yeah, well, maybe what I can share is really the master plan, because I'm talking about phase 2, but we have literally 2, 3, 4, and 5. We have 4 future development sites around City Foundry. I mean, City Foundry will be the amenity because it has so many wonderful things. We will have, we didn't talk about fitness. We've got a fitness user that we think is coming in. Obviously got a lot of entertainment. We may have some live music coming in here as well. So we've got a lot of interest that we're trying to develop. So that's the amenity. And so in our future master plan around us, we'll have additional retail. We will have housing, so people will be able to live here. We will have more office, and then we're going to be connected. Not only do we have the Brickline Trail, which will go from the arch to the park, but the Brickline Trail also will connect north and south across Interstate 64 to the Armory, for instance. And there's some plans, some hopefully exciting plans that the Armory will be able to realize that'll be great for St. Louis. We'll have a bridge, a pedestrian bridge between City Foundry and the Armory, and ultimately on into the St. Louis University Medical Center and the Iron Hill development that's being constructed to the south of us. The point of all this is there are literally billions of dollars being spent around us, and the developers and the institutions are working together to connect all these things together so that we create really a very dynamic experience. So when people come to St. Louis, we change the perception perhaps of what a hip city that we are with all the stuff that we're doing here in Midtown.
Well, terrific. Last call for questions, folks, but this has been absolutely phenomenal, Steve. Thank you so much for making the time. And thanks for everything that you're doing to develop City Foundry and all the other developments from the tourism infrastructure standpoint that Kitty mentioned in her introduction of you. You're a difference maker in this community, and we really appreciate it. And I think there's a virtual round of applause happening right now for about 105 people on this call.
Well, I can't wait to have our first Explore St. Louis event in person at some time in the future. So thank you.
We're going to take you up on that.
Very much so.
Well, thanks very much, Steve. We're going to carry on with our agenda. I know you're busy and you've got construction happening there. So I think we're going to pivot back to our agenda and pick up with a quick sales update from Eric Janik.